in keeping with the humor, comedy, April Fool's theme tonight, I'm sharing with you what could possibly be the stupidest thing I've ever written. It's actually the Snow White story told from the point of view of the Wicked Queen. It's called Confessions of a Not Quite Murderer. I never had anything against the girl. It was those 7 little men I couldn't stand, parading past the castle at daybreak with their droopy little drawers and pickaxes. And that incessant whistling. It was enough to drive a person to murder. But wait a minute, I'm incriminating myself. Let me back up and explain. Before I married the king, thereby inheriting the girl as my stepdaughter, I taught secondary school in the village. English grammar it was. No easy feat in a fairy tale of German origin. But I parsed and diagrammed and conjugated until I grew weary of it and sought to hook up with someone of royal blood. This way, I could have a luxurious life an English teacher's measly pittance would never allow. Then came the mine boom and enrollment skyrocketed. One morning after being insulted by the talking mirror in the school bathroom, I walked into senior English to find the family of 7 brothers scattered throughout my classroom, chattering noisily and making a general commotion. It was disaster from the get-go trying to teach anything to those little men. One of them, a narcoleptic, slept through every class. Another had allergies so bad that his constant sneezing was a continuous source of interruption, not to mention germs. Yet another was so shy that every time I called on him to answer a question, his tongue would tie up in a Boy Scout knot and he would blush blood red. One of the little men grumbled every time I assigned homework, while his more amicable brother always jumped with cheer, which, though more pleasant, proved equally distracting. Another, I was sure, smoked wacky tobacco, while the last of the 7, oddly, showed an aptitude for science. However, the long and short of it, and perhaps in this case just the short of it, was that these little men threw my classroom into utter chaos and sent me into therapy sessions that my school health insurance refused to cover. As a result, I grew to despise every one of them. Eventually, I had to take early retirement and speed up my search for a royal mate. The king I found on Match.com wasn't perfect, but by then I was desperate. He was a widower with baggage, a little black-haired girl from his first marriage. He, too, was anxious to marry and thus give the child a new mother. Admittedly, the child was beautiful, and I couldn't help my own insecurities in that regard. Her complexion was flawless, while mine proved a challenge for even the Mary Kay people. Her thick black hair cascaded onto her delicate shoulders like moonlight. Okay, sign me up for a 12-step program. My name is the Queen, and I am jealous. I tolerated the girl as she grew into young womanhood until the unthinkable happened. One morning, while sweeping the drawbridge, she struck up a conversation with the little men as they hi-hoed by. It was friendship at first sight, and within a week she had taken up residence in their cottage, purportedly as their housekeeper. Rumors swept wildly through the kingdom, heaping a great deal of shame on the royal family. I knew I must act fast. If I could somehow get rid of the little men once and for all and get Susie Homemaker to come home where she belonged, my husband would surely be indebted to me for life and dedicated to indulging my every whim. For a plan I deemed foolproof, things couldn't have gone more wrong. I made a batch of candy apples laced heavily with sleeping potion. I fancied that the little men would each eat a couple and then pass out for a day or two, giving the king and I, oops, different country, different story, more children. Make that the king and me, we need the objective case here anyway. Time to talk some sense into the girl and convince her to return home. So, disguised as a peddler, I delivered them to the little men's cottage as an FTD edible arrangement. The girl herself answered the door, accepting the gift most graciously. There is no way I could have known she was ravenous from a vigorous Richard Simmons workout and would gulp down every single apple before I had barely turned my back to go. The rest is history. And I'm sure you've heard the popular media version of the story. The little men found her, thought she was dead, and put her in the woods in a glass coffin. A guy claiming to be a prince from a neighboring kingdom rode through and was so taken by her beauty that he asked the little men's permission to carry her off. Thankfully, she awoke before she smothered to death in the glass coffin, and now she and the guy are living somewhere happily ever after. I, however, am not so lucky. Here I sit, suspected of attempted murder, waiting to be Mirandized and booked. I'm also waiting for a lawyer. With Perry Mason and Matlock both dead, and Atticus Finch off at a Save the Birds rally, I will have to settle for a public defender. I have heard that the brothers Grimm will testify for the prosecution, and no one will take the stand to vouch for my character. The little men are aggravated, the king is downright pissed, and I can't get a mirror anywhere to give me the time of day. I can't even go back to teaching because my license has been revoked. But that's a good thing, I guess. Teaching school isn't safe these days. You just never know who might show up in your classroom.